Hello everybody, welcome back. In this video, we're going to introduce ourselves to shaders and Maya's Hypershade window. So first things first, in order to actually play around with shaders, we need to actually have some objects here in the scene. So let's go up here to our shelf, or better yet, over to create, and polygon primitives, sphere, or again, just from the shelf. Either way is fine. I'm just going to use the shelf and just create a sphere here. Let's zoom in using our basic shortcuts from the previous video, pan a little bit. Let's go ahead and right click. And holding down the right mouse button, we're going to move our mouse down to where it says Assign New Material. We're going to navigate over to New Material. Again, right mouse button is held down the entire time. Let go now when you're above New Material. And now, in this new window, we can assign a material to this sphere. Important to note, every single primitive that you create in Maya automatically has a material assigned to it. But you don't want to work with that default material. Instead, you want to just assign your own materials. That way you have more control over the material. For this class, we're going to focus mainly on blends, Lamberts, Fongs, and Fong-Es. Let's make a Lambert. And let's assign it a color here. And I'm just going to make it... I have a color history here, but let's give it a new color. Let's give it green or yellow. Let's make it yellow. Let's make it yellow. Let's give this a name. It's a good idea to always name your materials. So in this case, I'm going to call it yellow underscore matte. Yellow Lambert underscore matte. Underscore matte is my preferred naming convention for materials, but you can use whatever naming convention you want for materials. As long as it's easy for you to identify a material by its name, then you can name it whatever you want. Great. So we have this sphere with a material. If I unselect the sphere and then reselect it again, we are in our attribute editor. We can see that we have a tab called yellow Lambert underscore matte. This is our material attribute editor. Excellent. Let's go ahead and add in a second sphere now. And let's bring it on over here so we can actually properly see it. Once again, holding down the right mouse button, moving down to assign new material, letting go above new material. This time, let's make a blend. And let's make this, well, I have purple here in my color history. But let's go ahead and just select one of these colors right here. Let's make it sky blue. Why not? And name this sky blue blend underscore MAT. And let's make another one. Another sphere here, and this time we're going to right click, go down to assign new material, same process, but this time we're going to select Fong. And now let's go ahead and give this a color. This time I'm going to select this purple one for my color history. Why not? But in reality, I can select any of these, including the default material here, but I would rather select a nice color and name this purple Fong underscore MAT. Wonderful. Okay, we have a few objects here, and they all have a material assigned to them. Now, with our objects all containing a material, let's actually go ahead and compare and contrast these materials a little bit. We can see that the Lambert compared to the Blinn and the Fong is not shiny at all and features no way to make it shiny, whereas with the Fong, if we select the material, the sphere with the Fong. Let's go back to the Fong attribute editor here, and let's start playing around with things like the cosine power. We can actually play around with the strength of the highlight that the Fong features here under cosine power under specular shading. I'm going to set it back to default. We can also play around with the transparency of the material if you want, which makes the whole object appear translucent if you wanted that effect. We can do that thing. We can do that same thing with the blend. Transparency options. And instead of having a cosine power like the Fong does, blends feature the ability to change the eccentricity, which does the same thing. The higher the eccentricity, the higher the highlight for the blend. The brighter and shinier it's going to appear. Whereas Lamberts don't feature those options at all, but you can play around with the transparency of a Lambert, just as you could a Fong or a Blinn or a Fong-E. There we are. Let's return to our Phong sphere here. And let's actually go back to the color for the Phong sphere. And before, I just went ahead and selected the color based on the color history or from up here in these provided basic color options. But we can actually change the color from here, from the square if we want to make it whatever we want. We can also manipulate the wheel here so that we're not just dealing with purples, but blues, greens, yellows, oranges, browns, all that stuff. We can also play with the H, S, and V values here to do the same thing that we could up there in the color wheel and color square. So plenty of ways for you to change the color of your materials if you wanted to. You can also change this from HSV to RGB. 0 to 255 is the more accepted common one. So just plenty of ways for you to manipulate and change the color of a material. If I were to change this to green, maybe a darker green, maybe I like that. But of course, if I change it to this darker green, then it doesn't make any sense to call this material purple Phong. So let's actually go ahead and rename this to green Phong. Why not? Also very important to note when it comes to materials assigned to primitives that whatever material you assign to a primitive is not the be-all, end-all. You are allowed to swap materials anytime that you want. So all you have to do for that, let's select the Lambert one over here, and let's go ahead and hold the right mouse button. Again, now instead of going to assign new material, we're going to assign existing material. And we have some options here for the basic standard materials that the objects came equipped with as soon as they were created. I believe it's this Open PBR Shader 1 and Lambert 1 are the ones that are assigned to objects automatically when they're created, but we also have our own materials here, like this green Phong that we can assign it. And now it is that same green Phong from this sphere. And let's see, we can also make this blend here. Let's go down to the yellow Lambert and just switch it over to that. And let's actually go ahead and change the color of the green Phong here, so that way you can see that anytime you switch any material, anytime you switch information about a material, any object that has that material assigned to it will automatically switch. So since both these spheres have the green Phong material, both of them are responding to the changes in color that I am doing here. They will also both respond to changes in transparency, changes in cosine power, since they both have the same material assigned. Let's assign this one the sky blue. Let's actually assign all of them the sky blue, just so that we can see that they can all be assigned the same material, and it's perfectly fine. And let's change the sky blue material a little bit now. Let's make this material very high in eccentricity, so it's very shiny. They both feature that, they all feature that exact same change. Now let's go ahead and change this one over to the yellow Lambert. Let's change this one over to the yellow Lambert. Let's change this middle one over to the green Phong. You can switch materials willy-nilly all you want. It is perfectly fine, it is perfectly acceptable, and it's perfectly easy to do so. And let's not limit ourselves to just spheres. Let's add in some more primitives. Let's add in a cylinder now. Put that over here. Let's add in a cube. Maybe we'll scale up the cube. We'll put the cube over here. Maybe I'll go ahead and go to the channel box and rotate this by 45 degrees, just to give this scene a little bit of oomph. Why not? And let's assign these two primitives existing materials. So I'm going to right-click, hold the right mouse button, assign existing material. Let's give this the Phong, and let's give this cylinder also the Phong. Why not? And let's go ahead and change some information about the Phong. So now I'm just going to have the cube selected. Why not? And just go to the attribute editor for the cube. Now go to the green Phong attribute information, and let's change the transparency. So I can change the transparency for anything that has the green Phong material, as we can see. Excellent. You will notice that even transparent Fongs retain their specular and highlights, their shininess. Among the cube, the cylinder, the sphere, the shininess remains even when it is partly transparent like this. But let's say you don't want to assign materials by just holding down the right mouse button and going down to assign existing materials or assign a new material. Maybe you don't want to do that, which is perfectly fine. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Hypershade now. So we can do that by going to Windows, Rendering Editors, and then Hypershade. Or, if you're noticing the icon right here, you can just navigate to the icon here. That's also the Hypershade. So let's actually display the Hypershade window right now. And here we go. This is our basic Hypershade view. I'm going to go ahead and just shrink this down a bit, make it easier to see, like this. A little easier for us to control and just view, as it were. Okay, so the Hypershade is made up of a few panels here. We have this browser panel, where we can take a look at all the materials that exist in the scene right now. We have the standard materials that came with the scene, in this case, the open PBR, particle cloud, shader glow, standard surface. But we also have the stuff that we made. We have the sky blue blend, that yellow Lambert, that green Fong. The stuff that we made is also here alongside the standard stuff that automatically comes with any Maya scene. This is why you want to rename your materials as soon as possible. You want to be able to find them easily in something like the Hypershade. So that's why you want to rename them into things that you can very easily track down. Let's see. If we go to View, we can actually change the size of these swatches if you want to. They're pretty big right now, so let's make them medium, just so we can have them in a nice, more organized fashion. But, if you have trouble seeing them at this size or, at this very small size, then feel free, make them large or make them extra large if you want to, whatever it takes for you to feel comfortable with this. In my case, I'm going to keep it at medium since I think that is pretty good. Let's see. If we select any one of these materials, let's select this yellow Lambert that we made before. We can view what the material looks like here on this shader ball. We can manipulate the shader ball just as we would a regular viewport in Maya. So I'm holding down Alt and the left mouse button to tumble the camera, right mouse button to zoom in and out, and the middle mouse button to pan around, and also just scrolling the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and just see what my material looks like on this basic shader ball right here. Let's see. We can also change our settings for the material here, our attributes for the material. So in this case, if I wanted to make this maybe a brighter yellow or a darker yellow, I could do that. Sort of a greenish yellow if I want to, a very bright thing like this. I can do that as well if I wanted to. If I wanted to make it transparent, I can also do so. The shader ball will reflect any changes that I make. I don't want to make this one transparent though, just as an example. Let's go ahead and move the shader a little bit down here. Let's move our viewport so we can have a better view of what we are working with. And let's go ahead. I'm going to take the sky blue blend. This sky blue blend. Oh boy, that's a tongue twister. I'm going to take the sky blue blend. I'm going to select it by holding down the middle mouse button. And I'm just going to drag it onto an object. So in this case, the cylinder. And now that has the sky blue blend. I can also middle mouse drag this to the sphere right here and give that the sky blue blend as well. Or middle mouse drag this Lambert and give it to the cube. Or give the green Fong to all three of the spheres. Again, all I'm doing is just hovering my mouse over the material, holding down the middle mouse button, and dragging it into whatever I want to have that particular material. So there we go. Not bad. Let's see. Let's make a new material. Let's create materials. I'm going to create a Fong now. Let's make another. Actually, let's make a Fong E. We haven't made a Fong E yet, so let's make a Fong E here. I'm going to make this. What color do I want to make this? Let's make this red. Just make this very red and not transparent. Let's give it some specularity, a lot of it. Some roughness. Let's make it very shiny. The lower the roughness, the shinier and more reflective the object is going to be. Let's call this red Fong E underscore MAT. And there we go, reflected here as well. Perfect. And let's assign this to the cylinder. Why not? Perfect. couple more things about the Hypershade before I close it. I want to bring your attention to this section right here. These are called nodes. We ourselves are not going to be using nodes in this class, not really, but they are here, and they are something that you can look into on your own time if you would like. Higher level courses will begin to use nodes a little bit more, just to keep in mind. Second thing I want to bring your attention to is the names of all of these little panels. We have the browser here for where our materials are. We have the material viewer for where the shader ball is. We have the property editor for where we can actually change the attributes of materials. We have create here so that we can generate our own materials. I actually went up here to create materials and then found my Fongy from here, but I also could have just selected, blend from here and just generated my own blend via this menu here if I wanted to. I actually don't want this blend, so I'm just going to have it selected and press the delete key on my keyboard to just get rid of it. Same thing with this Lambert one. I'll just do that as well. Oh, actually I can't, because this is, no, that's right, because this is the Lambert that is standard with the objects that are generated. So no, these standard things that come generated with every single object can't be deleted, but the stuff that I made myself can be. So if I were to bring in a second Fong, for example, I can just have it selected and then just press delete on my keyboard and just get rid of it completely. But the other thing I want to bring your attention to is what happens if you lose the browser, for example. So let's go ahead and just close this browser here and you don't have it anymore. What do you do at this point? You can go up to Window and go down here where it says Browser, and there's your browser again, and then you can just hold with the left mouse button and just place it wherever you want to place it. In this case, I want to place it back where it used to be, so I'm going to put it right there, and it's attached to where it used to be. We can also, I believe, undock them from here, and we can move them around if we wanted to. But for our purposes, we're going to keep stuff like the Hypershade or stuff like the basic Maya workspace to be, the default setup, just so that we're all looking at the same thing. But if for whatever reason you didn't have like the material viewer, you go to Window, Material Viewer, there it is. You place it where you want, and it's back. We can also do the same thing with the Hypershade. We can place this in the Maya workspace if we wanted to. So I'm just going to move my mouse around a little bit and just place it here, for example. And now my Hypershade is part of my workspace. I don't necessarily want this, so I'm going to go to Workspace. I'm going to reset the current workspace and get this back to the default setup. And Hypershade is also closed, but I can open it up again if you want, just so that we can close it properly and move on from here. So last thing I want to do is show you yet another way that you can create materials. So we went over the way where you selected an object, hold the right mouse button, go to assign new material or assign an existing material. We also went over the way where you open up the Hypershade and you created a material either through create materials or actually just found the material down here, namely blends, Lamberts, Fongs, and Fongis. The other way is by going to your shelf, and if you can see the rendering shelf right here, and the rendering shelf has access to blends, Lamberts, Fongs, and Fongis. Let's go ahead and create just one more object here. Let's make a torus now. And let's go ahead, go to rendering. Let's go ahead and make another Lambert. Why not? And with this Lambert, I'm going to make it, what do I want to make it? Let's make it orange. And call it orange Lambert underscore matte. So that is yet another way that you can create materials. You can select an object and hold the right mouse button and go to assign new material. You can do it through the Hypershade, again, with either create materials or just finding it here. Or you can use the shelf and just select your material from here. With the object selected, the material will automatically be assigned to that object. A quick cut, and I went ahead and just generated a bunch of basic polygon primitives through create polygon primitives. I just picked a bunch of stuff from here and just generated them. I assigned them materials, either a combination of materials that we already made throughout the course of the video, as well as a few new ones here and there, just to spice things up and provide a little bit more color to the scene. As you can see already, just using the stuff that we learned from the previous video and this video, we can already start making some pretty cool things. In the next video, we are going to begin modeling a scene with intent, rather than just demoing some stuff and testing them out, we are going to be taking what we learned from the first 2 videos and putting something together with some real intent behind it, and going over how just generating some basic primitives and using the basic materials that are allocated to you by Maya, you can already start making things that are really, really cool. So I'll see you then.